Project 2025 on Chapter 11, page 1. We'll read the first sentence to you. Federal education policy should be limited, and ultimately the Federal Department of Education should be eliminated. Well, Project 2025 commands it, and it appears Donald Trump heeds it, closing in on keeping that campaign promise. Wall Street Journal has obtained a draft of a Trump executive order aiming to do just what that sentence says it would do, directing the newly minted Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, who is currently on her 4th day on the job, to take the necessary steps to facilitate the closure of the department. McMahon told staff at the Department of Education in an email earlier in the week that Donald Trump and the American voters had, quote, tasked us with accomplishing the elimination of the bureaucratic bloat here at the Education Department. A momentous final mission, quickly and responsibly. Now only Congress has the authority to kill a cabinet-level department of the federal government, and it would need 60 votes in the Senate. But it's clear that the department responsible for distributing money to students with any sort of learning difference or disability, administering student loans, is right now, because of Donald Trump, on life support, with its entire workforce knowing that their bosses at the department and in the Oval Office are looking to eliminate the department and put all of them out of work. Joining our conversation is Randi Weingarten. She's the president of the American Federation of Teachers. Let me just, I think because if you're a parent of kids, what you touch is your kids' school and your kids' teachers. But let me just put some information out there. Public schools in the country educate almost 8 million students with disabilities. The Education Department distributes funds for college and student loans and financial aid. It funds all education programs for low-income kids and homeless kids, distributes funding for all kids with disabilities, does college accreditation, civil rights enforcement, and importantly, even with all the attacks, a lot of them unanswered forcefully or specifically, 63% of all Americans oppose this. That includes some of Trump's own voters. Your thoughts?
So number one, let me do a little bit of a civics lesson, Nicolle, which is states and localities control education right now, from graduation standards to curriculum. They control education. That's why we all go to the local school board to, talk about issues of the day. So this doesn't pass the smell test. What this is about is basically taking a hatchet to the opportunity funding that the Department of Education now implements because of what we have done, all of us from Lyndon Johnson on, from the 1960s on. The department doesn't run anything. What it does is fills opportunity gaps. So for kids who are disabled, who were never given the attention they needed, that's what the IDEA is. And the department now makes sure it's implemented. So kids get on an IEP, an occupational therapist or a physical therapist. For kids who are poor, what it does is make sure there's a reading specialist and a paraprofessional to help with literacy or to help with math. You're talking about 26 million kids. For kids who are first generation college goers, it gives them funding to get to college. For kids who want to go into career ed, it gives funding so we can have the kind of clean labs, the healthcare pathways. That's what we're talking about here. So we're talking about kids in America, 90% of whom go to public schools. They want to take the funding. It's like robbing Peter to pay for Elon's tax cuts. And it's wrong, and that's why parents and teachers are against it. You want to change bureaucracy? Fine. No one likes inefficiency. We'd be the first ones to tell you how to do it. Don't do this to our American children.
I think we have a graphic way to illustrate that Trump seems to relish punishing people that he thinks didn't support him. But this decision actually disproportionately punishes people who, at least, the data suggests, live in states that did vote for him. Will you talk about?
Exactly right.
Yeah, can you see that? Will you talk about the wealth gap and where this is going to hit the hardest?
Exactly. So what happens with the biggest funding source here, which comes directly from the Congress, Title I of the Education and Secondary Act that Lyndon Johnson started, but every president since then has tried to increase, is that this goes for poor kids. So if you look at this graph, sorry, I don't have my glasses on, so
I just put mine on.
Really
it's Mississippi, South Dakota, Arkansas, yeah.
Exactly.
20 red
Mississippi,
states.
one of the poorest states in the country, has the biggest funding per capita because Title I goes directly to kids in those schools. It can't be glommed off by the state. It can't be taken by the federal bureaucrats. It goes directly to schools. And part of what's going on here is that people like Donald Trump and Betsy DeVos, maybe Linda McMahon, they want to take this money and make it either into tax cuts for the rich or into block grants. So they take it from the poor kids who need it, or for the kids from disabilities who need it, and put it into block grants so that they can give it to basically rich parents who want vouchers. What is the
opposition to this look like, since it isn't? I mean, put the picture back up. If there's a partisan detriment, it is purely in the red states in this country. I mean, the chart is almost all red. What is the ability, even if it were bipartisan, to slow or stop this?
So, this is part of what, unfortunately, education was not an issue in this last national campaign. It was in states, and in every state where there was a voucher fight, the voucher fight lost. Parents, basically, only 30% of adults in America have kids in schools right now. So basically what we need to do is what we did this week, which is in schools across the country, parents and teachers, community activists, all on March 4th said, protect our kids and don't gut this funding. And so that's what it's going to have to look like. It has to look local in terms of this fight back. We had over 2 activities on March 4th in schools to say, don't do this.
I have to take a break. I want to ask you to stick around. I want to talk about student loans. That's another big function of the Department of Education. It will be massively impacted. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Randi, let's turn to something I know a lot about, student loan debt. 42 million Americans have student loans. 43% are in repayment, and they have payments due now and they're behind. Talk about the role of the Department of Education in dealing with and working with people trying to repay massive student loan debts.
So, the Department of Education now, thanks for the question, Nicolle. The department now basically is one of the biggest banks in America. And that's because in the early mid 2000s, there was a lot of scandals, not just about banks in general, but on student loan practices. So what President Obama did was take the entire student loan portfolio and gave it to the Department of Education, because they did a lot of stuff on colleges anyway, and said, let's make sure that there's transparency and that kids know, like mortgages for families, what the loan rate is, what the terms of payment are, and let's call balls and strikes in a real way. Now, some of the loan servicers that they hired were not great, like now Mohila and beforehand Navient. But that's why the Department of Education has this book of business. But what is happening now is that I think Trump basically wants to give it to the private sector again. But right now, people have loans. everything has been taken off the website. So you don't know what your loan payment is. You don't know how much you still have to pay. If, God forbid, you are a penny or 2 pennies late or different than what the payment is supposed to be, then you could be in forbearance, meaning then somebody could take, basically say you have bad credit rating. And for the bipartisan program of public service loan forgiveness that was done, I think, by your boss, when you were in the White House, Hillary Clinton and Ted Kennedy, they've just taken that program right off the website. So you don't know how to apply for it. You don't know when your loans are due. They're just trying to junk it so that people are going to be in bad financial shape.
What, in your view, is the most effective way for people to stop this if they don't like it? Again, another indiscriminate, not politically aligned harm being done to the American people.
So the first thing we have to do is we have to educate people about what's really going on. I mean, just symbolically, that this is the smallest department in the United States. And the things that Elon Musk cut, let me give you one example that really is close to my heart. A program I taught when I was a social studies teacher, the We the People competition, which is a civics program to help kids learn how to debate and understand the Constitution. It couldn't be more patriotic. I mean, they taught it in the red district of Van Wert. They taught it in the blue district, my school, Clara Barton High School. They cut that program when we need civics. So part of what we need to do is educate people that this is not just mean-spirited and cruel, but it is undermining of innovation and of opportunity for kids. And then number two, we have to go to the Congress. There's lots of Republican Congress people, you showed it in your chart, that get lots of money for their districts and their schools that are about to get ripped away. So that's where the fight is going to have to be, in the Congress and in the courts and in the court of public opinion.
Randi, we'll stay on this story as it has such wide-ranging impact. We'll continue to turn to you. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. Ahead for